Welcome to Thriving with Chiropractic, where Dr. Mosier from Mosier Family Chiropractic shares a variety of topics designed to empower, inspire, and give hope. Take a few notes and enjoy the lesson.
Hey folks, this is Dr. Mosier here, and welcome to Chiropractic 101. So let's get started. So the purpose of tonight's talk is to talk about what is health, where it comes from, and how to find it when you need it. That way you can get the most benefit out of your care. But we're also going to talk about differences in healthcare models and how trauma, stress, toxins, spinal neglect can actually lead to poor health. My goal actually through this program is to give you quality information. That way you can make a quality decision really about your health. But I have to ask, do I have your permission to take you out of that comfort zone? The reason why I'm asking this is you're probably going to get information that you've probably not heard before. So let's get started. So many of you may or may not know, but Ellen used to suffer with debilitating migraines. They were so often that she would have a migraine more often than not having a migraine. She literally would have to leave the classroom, go to the dorm room, shut the blinds, close the curtain. She was done. She was miserable. And we had to cancel our dates. I would say, hey, babe, let's go to the movies. Let's go out to eat. Let's go to a show. What have you. I'm sorry, I can't. I have a migraine. It was miserable. So she ended up seeing a neurologist, and they did the MRIs, they did the test, and all they said is, well, you're going to have to deal with this for the rest of your life. So I literally watched Ellen cry herself to sleep every single night because there was absolutely no hope. Now, at the same time that she's suffering, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Am I going to be a physical therapist? Am I going to be a personal trainer? Am I going to own my own gym? So many questions. I knew that I wanted to help people, but I didn't know how and how God was calling me to. And so fast forward this story, I meet this chiropractor. He's a family friend, and I remember where we ate. It was at Fazoli's in Bloomington. It was after church on a Sunday, and we were sitting there. And actually that same day, Ellen had a migraine. And we were sitting there, and he was explaining what chiropractic can do and all the benefits and success stories of past patients of his. And then he tells me casually, oh, and we help with migraines too. And he had no idea that Ellen was at her mom and dad's house suffering with a migraine to the point of vomiting. It was horrendous. And I said, hey, doc, Monday or Tuesday or as soon as possible, can she come into your office and can you check her for these things that you're calling subluxations, which was a totally foreign term to me. And I'm going to explain what subluxations are here in a little bit in this program. And he said, yes, of course. We'll get her in. We'll do a consult. We'll do an exam. We'll do an evaluation. We'll take some x-rays. We'll want to see what's going on. So he ends up doing that. And I have never in my life experienced a more thorough evaluation, examination. And then, he had to take the x-rays, but he needed time to develop the x-rays, and he needed time to look at the x-rays, do his analysis. So on the next day, we came in for our report of findings, and it was plain Jane. It was right there. He said, those bones are misaligned in her neck, causing these migraines. And so he started treating her. She started receiving adjustments. Now, it took time. It wasn't an instant relief. These migraines actually over the next few weeks and a few months became less and less, to the point that she hardly ever deals with migraines. And this is such a relief for us because, well, we can go on dates. We can enjoy time together. She doesn't always have to cancel. This is one of the most common things that I see amongst my migraine cases that we see today is y'all are always canceling your plans. because all of a sudden, boom, you have a migraine and you can't do what you were planning to do. You couldn't go to that concert. You couldn't go to that recital. You couldn't go hang out go to that kid's birthday party. So many things you're missing out on. And so that's why we're making this program, because you don't need to suffer anymore. And this isn't just a migraine talk. This is just chiropractic, like I said, chiropractic 101. But that's really our story, is how we began, our chiropractic journey is Ellen's migraines. So let's get into the meat and potatoes. So the U.S. healthcare system by far is the most extensive healthcare system in the world. We have the most doctors, best medical schools, hospitals, technology, equipment in the world. So when it comes to emergency care, trauma care, crisis care, we are number one. Hands down, no one can touch us. But that is only 1% of all of healthcare. So what about the other 99%? We actually rank 79th out of 81 industrialized countries. Awful. But here's the thing. We have a current model of health. That current model of health says symptoms are bad. So if you have symptoms, you have poor health. You are unhealthy. Okay, if that is true, then the opposite has to be true. If you don't have none of them symptoms, then you're deemed healthy. The logic doesn't quite fit. Well, if our focus is symptoms, then our objective is symptom relief. Cover those things up. And the problem is, our current model of health states that health is judged by how a person feels. But you can actually be pain-free, symptom-free, and still be really, really unhealthy. So, for instance, you go over to the dentist and you've been brushing your teeth, you've been flossing, you've been doing all the stuff you're supposed to do. And you get in there and he or she pulls out that little poker. And I know that's not the proper term, but you know what I mean, the little poker. And he always seems to find those bad spots. So you walked in strutting your stuff thinking you're all good, but you walked out finding out that you have tooth decay, you have a cavity, you have something wrong. Now, here to take it a step further, there's the top 3 leading causes of death: heart disease, cancer, and stroke. What are the early detection, early symptom signs for these conditions? And the answer's staring right at you. It's none, none, and none. How many of us know someone that were just a rocking and a rolling? They were doing great. They had a vibrant life. They were serving their community, serving in their church, you name it. And then all of a sudden they get a diagnosis, or they all of a sudden pass away, or something happens. It's all of a sudden. Something was brewing underneath that we didn't know. But for the time being, they sure did look good and felt good. But there's more to this. Now, let's talk about a different avenue of this. You can actually have pain, you can have symptoms, but it's healthy. Let me explain. Let's say now we're in Washington County, and you all may be watching this from all over, and that's okay. But we have a very nice, fine dining establishment here in Washington County. Taco Bell. So let's say you go over to the local Taco Bell, your food wasn't prepared right, and you go home and you end up in this position. Now, the reason why this is healthy is let me ask you this. Would you want that tainted food going through your GI tract, getting absorbed into your bloodstream and going to all your cells? Or would you rather upchuck it and get that toxic out of your body as fast as possible? And of course, get it out. There's a whole lot of pain. There's a whole lot of symptoms. It's extremely unpleasant, but that is how our body is designed. So let's talk about health for a second. Nowhere in the dictionary, Webster, or online are you going to find that health is defined by how a person feels. You're going to get things like wholeness and optimal function. And if you put it on a mathematical equation, health equals optimal function with innate intelligence. Now that's a new one, but optimal function, that's a variable. It can go up, it can go down. And if you're watching this, or some of you out there may not be functioning quite how you ought to be. Let's talk about innate intelligence, because that is a constant. And so let me explain this. Billy Joel. Now, some of you may know who he is. Some of you may not. That's okay. Billy Joel, he's a famous piano player, just an absolute rock star. One of his famous songs is Piano Man. He's probably played that thing, in concert, in practice, hundreds of thousands of times. I mean, he knows his song. It's his song. So what if we gave him, Billy Joel, a broken keyboard? And then we asked him to play. And this is so messed up that it's not even tuned right. You're going to get a whole lot of noise. Now, what if we take Billy Joel and we give him a nice piano, a baby grand? You're going to get awesome music. Now, this is the same way that our body, our nervous system, our innate intelligence wants to express itself through a functioning nervous system so that your health can express itself. Because our health has nothing to do with symptoms at all. It's all about the function and the structures allowing function to actually take place. Because health is your birthright. You are actually designed to be healthy. So, what is limiting our body's ability to function properly? So, let's have some fun. What is the most important organ in the body? Is it your heart? Is it your lungs? Is it your skin because you have so much of it? Is it your eyes, your ears, your nose, your throat? It is actually your brain. This thing is completely encased in bone. So think about the most valuable player on a football team, the quarterback. Well, who gets the biggest and baddest guys to protect him? The quarterback. Your brain is completely engulfed in bone, protecting it. Now, let's move on to the next organ question. What is the second most important organ in the body? You have a little bit of a hint on the screen here. It is your spinal cord. Now, your spinal cord is what connects that highway system from your brain to the rest of your body. Now, this almost completely encased in bone. If it was fully encased in bone, we would walk around like broomsticks, and tying our shoes would be pretty difficult. But let's talk more about spinal anatomy, because there's, when you think about your spine, you think about, well, it ought to be straight. And, well, that's half true. It should be straight from the front to the back. But if you turn someone to their side, they ought to have that curve in their lumbar and their cervical spine, and even in the thoracic spine in the other direction. That allows shock absorption. But let's do a little trivia. How many neck bones is in the human spine? There's 7. And there's 12 thoracic bones in the thoracic spine, the mid-back. And that's where all your ribs, you have 12 pairs of ribs that attach. And you got 5 big old vertebrae down in the lumbar spine. Why are they the biggest? They support the most body weight. So now let's talk about the individual disc, because you got, and I'll use my model here as you're looking at the screen, but you got a bone, you got a disc, you got a bone. And that spinal cord is coming through the back end here and out these nerve roots. So if you have irritation, you can see that that communication gets altered. But misalignments. So I said something there, and we're going to touch on that and see what that is. But how do you get misalignments of your spine? So you got childhood trauma, you got sports injuries, you got, well, I'll admit to this. I did this as a kid to people. I would take a chair and I'd pull it out from underneath them and watch them fall on their tush. Really bad to do, but I was the mean guy, I guess. Falling off the bike, falls and tumbles. There's a lot that can happen as a kid. What about birth trauma? So they did a study. The average OB weighed about 170 pounds when they did the study. Average baby at the time of the year of the study weighed about 7 pounds. And they hooked them up to a device to measure, okay, docs, pull like you're pulling a baby out of the birth canal. So when they did this, they actually found that the average pull on a baby's neck from these doctors was between 70 to 90 pounds. That's like holding a baby and strapping 2 45-pound plates on its legs and holding it there. Now, us adults, we're not immune to these injuries as well. We fall on ice, we fall on stairs, we just fall on about anything. Playing sports, lifting injuries, bump on our head on our private helicopter. Okay, maybe I don't have a private helicopter, but you get my point. You bump your head on anything. Repetitive motion. So I'm not just talking about the guy that lifts something that's too heavy, but what about the guys and gals that are working in the factory doing the same thing over and over and over and over? That repetitive poor posture, that poor motion, that can lead to a lot of injuries, not just in your extremities, but also in your spine health. Car accidents. Now we know the guy on the right, he's a hurting, right? That car is totaled, it's done. But what about the two on the left? See, these low-speed impact collisions can just be as dangerous. You bump into somebody else's car, you hop out of your car, you check your car, you check yourself, you check them, you make sure everybody's okay. Your adrenaline is pumping. But how do you feel the next day? You feel like you've been hit by a truck, like a Mack truck just plowed into you. And that's because this is called delayed effects. Your body's actually able to feel the damage, the misalignment, the stress that has been put on your spine. Now, let's talk a little bit more, because I talked a lot about how we can misalign our spine physically. But you know, your spine is so connected to your gut flora that if you eat toxins, if you consume a ton of pollution, if you eat toxic foods, that can disrupt your gut flora, throwing off your spine. Now, I also have stress on here. Now, you're going to think I'm a little crazy, and that is okay. But when you're stressed, your cortisol levels start to break down your immune system, for one, but it also breaks down the ligaments and tendons, throwing your spine out of whack even more. So an easy way to remember this is the 3 T's: traumas, physical stress; toxins, chemical stress; and thoughts, emotional stress. Now, a lot of times, people ask, well, doc, how did I get so bad, when they're looking at their x-rays? And I have to be honest, it ain't you flipped the four-wheeler and landed on your head. That's why you have headaches. It actually builds up over time. There could be possible birth trauma. You got kids wearing backpacks way too heavy. And if you try to be cool like I did, I wore it on one shoulder, which is a really silly idea. Or you got sports injuries, or you got car accidents when you first learn how to drive and you start bumping into cars like it's bumper cars. And then you graduate high school, you either go off to college or you get a real job, or life kind of happens. And stress, nobody's immune to stress. So stress gets us all. Now let's talk a little anatomy. So the nerves in your neck, they go down to your arms. So carpal tunnel, elbow injuries, so tennis elbow, things like that can really occur there. Low back, those go down to the legs and to the feet. So plantar fasciitis, knee issues can really be affected there. But the nerves don't just do down the extremities. They actually go to other places like organs. I know, crazy thought. But the nerves in your neck go to your eyes, your nose, your ears, your throat. So misalignment there, that can lead to blurry vision, ringing the ears, sinus issues, headaches. That's a big one. Mid-back, you got your heart, your lungs, your stomach. So breathing issues, you could have blood pressure issues, arrhythmias, acid reflux. Your low back, now that goes to your kidneys and your large and small intestine and your reproductive organs. So misalignments are there. Kidney disease, reproductive issues, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, irritable bowel syndrome, constipation, diarrhea. It's just a really crappy situation down there. That's my fun chiropractic joke of today. But what are these misalignments? What are they called? Fancy term, subluxation. This is a misalignment. If you think about a dislocation where the bone is totally off kilter, subluxation is a slight misalignment, just enough to cause kind of like a dimmer switch in the nerve flow. So with subluxation, you get pain, you get tenderness, owie, you get inflammation and swelling. That's just like you roll your ankle in the cornfield maze or something like that, and it swells up like a balloon. Same thing happens in our back bones, our joints back there. You got tightness in the muscles. Well, those muscles are connected to those nerves. You irritate the nerves, you irritate the muscles. Oh, it's a cascade effect. And then you got locked joints. The joints are stuck and they don't move. So that's why some people come in and they're like, Doc, I can't turn my head one direction, or I can't twist, or I can't bend over. I can't do what I'm normally able to do. And then you got abnormal posture and abnormal heat. And that really goes back to the swelling. So you're hot to the touch in those inflamed areas. That's part of inflammation. Now, there's a researcher. He's not a chiropractor, but he's a spine expert. He's more into the research rather than treating patients. But he states that subluxations are very real. We have documented to the extent that no one can dispute its existence. But he furthered his research and he found that the weight of a dime, just a little tiny dime, on a spinal nerve will reduce the nerve transmission by as much as 60%. Oh my goodness. Now, the Journal of American Medical Association states that deviations in the body's center of gravity, so poor posture, have resulted in intestinal problems, hemorrhoids, varicose veins, osteoporosis, hip and foot deformities. But this is what they had in bold. It leads to poor health, decreased quality of life, and a shortened lifespan. So let's talk about getting the most out of your care. So many people, they put off getting the problem checked. And this is like a leaky roof. Say you go home tonight and you're eating dinner and you look up and you say, oh golly, there's a leak in our roof. And I'm sure that's how you would say, oh golly. But anyway, oh golly, you have a leak in your roof and you say, dear, I'm going to wait a couple years to get that addressed. Well, you or her or he or whoever is going to be standing there with an umbrella, and you're going to be reading your newspaper in the rain. Obviously, you're looking at these pictures, and what is the quicker and easier and cheaper fix is when you first found it. What's more expensive? What's more time consuming? The one on the right. So here's the 5 most dangerous words in the world. Maybe it will go away. And common sense tells us that something only goes away when what's causing it goes away. Aha. Covering up the problem. And I'm just going to tell you, your headaches, your sciatic nerve pain, or anything that you can think of, that pain is not due to a lack of aspirin, Tylenol, or ibuprofen or drug of choice in your bloodstream. So covering up the problem. So let's say we got 4 teenage boys and they want to get down to Florida. It's on their spring break. They are going to the beach. They're going to do beach volleyball. They got big plans, concerts to go see, all that. And they're driving down the road and they get to like the Florida, Georgia line. That sounds like a country band. Anyway, so they get down there and all of a sudden they get this oil light comes on. And they say, well, we could take this exit. We could go to Jiffy Lube and get this fixed up and tuned up and we're good to go. Or we can just run into Lowe's right over here and get some duct tape. And we can take care of that light real good so we don't have to see it no more. How far are they going to get with the oil being an issue? Probably not very far. And then you have the engine block seize up. This is the same way with your joints. When they're misaligned, that is like your oil light coming on saying, we're not working, fix now. But you ignore it. You put some duct tape on it. You put some Tylenol or Advil or ibuprofen into that system saying, I fixed that light real good. But eventually what happens? Arthritis, degenerative disc disease. Those joints start to seize up and they shut down. Now, the other thing is missing appointments. Say someone wants to bake you a cake, but they don't read the instructions and they decide, well, I'm too busy to read instructions. I'm just going to, instead of flour, I really like sugar. So let's double the sugar and let's, I ain't got time to sit there for an hour at 350 degrees. Let's crank this puppy up to 600 degrees and do this in 10 minutes. You might end up with, I'm not even sure what that is, but that's okay. That would be like someone missing appointments, though, missing the recipe in their routine. Now, I'm on a tell on myself, and I really enjoy biscuits and gravy. It's not something I eat all the time, but I really enjoy it, and I wanted to make it myself. I'm a do-it-yourselfer kind of guy sometimes, and so I decide, okay, here's the ingredients. Here's the instructions. You got milk and flour. And I was reading it and I thought, that's not very much flour. And that's a whole lot of milk. That's dumb. I know how to make biscuits gravy. I'm going to do this myself. So I took the recipe and I cut the milk in half and I doubled the flour. Well, if you're watching this, you're probably thinking, oh, golly. Yes, you're saying, oh, golly again. You're saying, oh, golly. Doc just made paste. If you're saying that to yourself, you're correct. I did. I missed some key instructions. I didn't pay attention to the instructions. So missing appointments can dramatically slow down your healing process. Missing your rehab exercises, missing your supplement taking can dramatically slow down your process. And lastly, we're all in too big of a hurry. There is a window of time that healing actually takes place, 90 days. It's just like, a lady gets pregnant. Well, it takes 9 months for that baby to cook. I know that's not proper terminology, but for the baby to develop. So healing in the joints takes 90 days. So it's not going to happen overnight. Now, back to the fact that health is your birthright. So conception, I know I was just talking about a lady who is pregnant, and so, a mommy cell and a daddy cell come together and they start to multiply. Well, when they start to multiply and then you got this big glob of cells, all of a sudden you get this primitive streak, and that becomes the notochord. It's really that notochord is really the spinal cord for us adults in this infant, this baby inside the womb. And so that notochord controls what each and every cell becomes. So it says, hey, you cells over here, you become the heart, and you cells over here, you become the stomach, and on and on and on. And so your cells are constantly replicating and growing under the control of the central nervous system. So after 7 years, each and every 7 years, you have an entirely new body, because the cells are constantly replicating and dying off, and old cells come on and new cells come in. It's just like you rub your arm, you probably flaked off a few hundred dead skin cells, but you don't have this big hole in your arm because, well, there's new cells rising back to the surface. Same thing with your organs. So let's go, for instance, your pancreas. So that pancreas nerve, go into the pancreas, say it has a misfiring, it has a subluxation, a misalignment going to it. With the new cells that are supposed to form, are they going to form right? Well, no. If they don't form right, will it produce the insulin like it's supposed to? Well, no. Well, could you see how someone over time could actually develop diabetes, insulin resistance? Now, here's the really cool thing. What if we got to it soon enough? Turn on that nervous system, allow those cells to actually replicate like it's supposed to. Could you see how those new cells could actually function and form right, allowing the insulin to be better regulated in that individual's body? Well, absolutely. This is the same thing as, say I go home and I park the truck right on the water hose, and Ellen's trying to water the mums, which is a really dumb idea. I don't recommend anybody do that. But anyway, you stop the water going to the flowers, to the mums. Those things start to die. And then before I die, I get the truck off of the water hose, allowing that water flow to get back onto those flowers, those mums, allowing them to grow and prosper and do its thing. Did I touch those flowers? No, I just got off its water source. So it's really like this. The removal of subluxations allows the body to heal itself. Your body is so wonderfully made. Adjustments restore the flow of nerve energy to the body, allowing the body to function how it was designed. Now, the Journal of Neurology states that the quality of healing is directly proportional to the functional capability of the central nervous system to send and receive nerve messages. Your body's ability to heal is directly related to its communication. So you might as well say nice things to yourself. Now let's talk about the medical approach for a second. It is very much a symptom-based model. You treat the body as individual parts rather than as a person as a whole. You treat the symptoms. And the pharmacy model is the same. They're one and the same. Now, do you think there's a profit incentive to sell you drugs? Yes, and yes, and yes. 80% of their budget is on marketing. We and one other country is the only two countries in the world that is allowed to have drug commercials on TV. Americans spend over 300 billions on drugs last year alone. And the profits are ridiculous for these pharmaceutical companies. Now, earlier I mentioned that we rank 79th out of 81 countries. I did not tell you how much we spend. We are also number one in spending on our healthcare, but we are one of the sickest. We spend well over $2.7 trillion on our healthcare. Insurance is also a symptom-based model. They want, when a doctor gets under network, they have to sign this massive contract saying that you're going to do the least you can for someone in the shortest possible time and the cheapest price. Doc, we just want you to duct tape them and send them out the door. Don't really fix them. We'll just cover that thing up. And there was a guy. He's an old farmer. He's on the outskirts of Chicago, and he's tending to his farm. He's tending to his farm, but there was an accident happened, a major leg injury, so bad that they had to stat flight him to the city of Chicago, and this team of surgeons surrounded him and said, hey, we can save his leg. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of money, but we can do this. They call the insurance company up, go over their plan with them. The insurance company calls them back and says, no, amputate. Cut the guy's leg off. It's cheaper and faster. Do that. That's what we will approve. There's a lot of control here. That's what we'll approve. So, what do? They're under the control of the insurance company. They're under that contract. So what do? They cut the guy's leg off. That guy ends up taking them all to the Supreme Court and winning back a ton of money. But all the money in the world, is that going to give him his leg back? Well, no. And that's why when insurance is involved, it is an absolute roll of the dice in your healthcare. So let's recap. The purpose of chiropractic: removal of interference, allowing your nervous system to communicate with your body, allowing proper cell replication and actual healing, and proper function, leading you to be healthier. Now, I'm going to end with this last story here. Miss Brogue. Now, this was back when I was practicing in Anderson, Indiana, and I was the associate doc. And this lady, she was at the time 78, 79 years old. She was feisty, okay? But regardless, the daughters, who were about middle-aged, 40s, 50s, somewhere in there, they were already patients of ours, and they desperately, absolutely desperately wanted us to check her mom. And so they brought her mom to me, kicking and screaming. She did not want anything to do with us, and she didn't want to see any doctor of any sort, especially a chiropractor. But even with her resistance, the daughters convinced her, let's take some x-rays, let's let doc take a look at you. So on the viewing left, you can see her x-rays were awful. The stacking of the bones was not even right. If you look on the top view, there's a massive curve there. It is horrendous. And she just told me, well, I have some back pain. It's difficult walking sometimes, whatever. Just a grouchy old lady. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just doing my job. So anyway, a couple weeks pass by and she looks at me and she says, Doc, I really appreciate you. I am so glad you're my doctor. Now, up until that point, she was a bear. She was a grumpy. But she showed up to her appointments anyway. And then a couple more weeks, we find out, on her progress exam that are looking much better. Is she the spine of a 20-year-old? No. But every bone is stacking on top of the other. And her unleveling in her pelvis was cut in half. And I was asking her a few questions, just routine re-exam checks. How's your bowel movements? How's your energy level? How's your sleep? Well, when I got to the bowel and the bladder question, she just said, Doc, before I was seeing you, when I would go to stand up, I would poop. I would have a bowel movement. So going anywhere, I didn't want to do. She was actually becoming a hermit. And she also stated that she is actually able to make it to the bathroom in the morning without having a bladder accident. Now, Miss Bro didn't tell me any of those issues when she first came in and I asked her, why didn't you tell me this in the beginning? Well, Doc, you're a back doc. I didn't think you could deal with those things. And this is another reason why I'm doing this class, so people actually know. Because if you think about it, what if she didn't receive the care that she deserved? What if she didn't get chiropractic care? Well, what would her quality of life be like today? Or if you're having bowel and bladder issues, add a couple more years to this, would she even be around? And that is the big, big concern. So I hope that you all had an awesome time joining me. I hope you found this valuable and informative, and I hope to see you next time on Thriving with Chiropractic. Have a blessed rest of your day.
If you found value in this video, please comment and let us know your biggest takeaway. We also ask that you don't keep this information to yourself. We ask that you share it with your friends and family by simply clicking the share button below.